Hey, what's up guys? This is Brad with Despite Fitness, and I wanted to make a quick video. It's been a little bit since I've done much. Honestly, just had a lot going on in the house, had a lot going on with the family, and it's getting toward that holiday season. And this particular part of the year tends to be pretty heavy for birthdays and things like that. I have 5 or so birthdays in a very short span of time, so it's a lot going on. Insert excuse here. I apologize for not being a little bit more busy or prevalent, I guess, in terms of my posting and things like that, but want to try to rectify that a little bit at least. This video, I want to do kind of a fast one, and this comes as a question from one of my friends, Ponzi, and he wanted me to talk a little bit about sponsorships. And it's kind of an interesting question. It's kind of an interesting concept, and so I figured it could make for a fairly decent, fast video for anyone that's thinking about or curious about sponsorships. So, in terms of sponsorships, one thing that you got to try to understand is, what is a sponsorship, right? So, sponsorships generally come in the form of either monetary support and or equipment, gear, things like that, getting you hotel, getting you entry fee, etc. Now the thing with a sponsorship is a partnership, is a two-way relationship. It's you and somebody else agreeing on a set of factors, and each party is responsible for doing something, whatever that thing is. Now, one of the things you have to consider, or you would have to think about in terms of accepting or engaging in a sponsorship is, should there be a contract or should there not? I would absolutely, wholeheartedly, emphatically say that you should have a contract. Something written in paper, written in ink, written on paper in ink, enumerating and stating what each party's responsibility is, what you as the sponsored individual is going to do, and what the sponsor is going to do. That way there are no misconceptions about what each party's responsibility is. Everybody knows who is supposed to do what and what those things are well in advance. And I can tell you that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of being engaged in several different sponsorships, and some of those were very good and some of those were very bad for different reasons, and I guess that's probably going to be anyone's experience. Some relationships are good and some relationships are not that good, and it's just kind of how things go. So you have to make those assessments for yourself about what kind of relationships you want to be involved in and what's good for you as the sponsored athlete or as the sponsored person, and what you are or are not willing to do. Now, like I said, I always advocate doing a contract, because even if you have a sponsorship with someone who is a close friend or someone that's a close personal acquaintance of yours, a contract is good because it kind of, like I said, enumerates each party's responsibility. There's no questions, there's no misgivings about who is responsible for what or what each party is supposed to do. It makes things kind of neat and clean, and I would always recommend that. It takes a lot of the guessing out of the relationship and just clearly enumerates it, which I think is very important to have. Everybody knows what their responsibility is, and that can never be a bad thing. Now, in terms of like how to approach sponsorship, it's kind of a tricky question. There are a lot of instances where you as the athlete will be approached by the sponsor or by the potential sponsor, but in some instances you may approach the company or the entity that you hope to seek sponsorship from. So in terms of approaching somebody, I would say that you really need to have some kind of a similar interest or a similar line. So whatever it is that you do needs to line up with whatever that person or that company does as well. So there needs to be some kind of a cross-pollination between those two realms. As a powerlifter, for example, a unlikely sponsorship might be women's deodorant. Well, I guess maybe not. I guess that might there might be some application for that. But maybe, I don't know, hand sanitizer, something like that. Like, so you may not approach Johnson & Johnson, hand sanitizer as a potential sponsorship because there may not be a lot of cross-pollination between those two realms. But something like chiropractic, something like athletic wear, whether that be performance gear like shoes or sleeves or whatever. There's a lot of cross-pollination there. You just got to make sure that that interests are aligned, because essentially, in terms of a sponsorship, what that company or that entity is utilizing you for as the sponsored athlete is advertisement. They want to get more eyes and more attention on their product, and they're hoping that you, as the sponsored athlete, will be a good vessel by which to get more attention onto their product. That's how that works. You get something, monetary or gear or whatever, and in return, you expose a new crop of consumers to that company or that person's product. It's what it is. It's a relationship, and it's a business transaction, and that's exactly how you need to see it. Then also you need to consider, in terms of approaching somebody, not only is there a similar interest, but what do you have to offer? Are you a high level, top nationally ranked athlete in whatever it is your chosen profession is, or are you not? If the higher ranked you are and the more proficient you are in that sport and the more pedigree that you have, the more other companies and the more people are going to want to align themselves with you, because if you are a highly proficient, highly ranked athlete in whatever sport that is, it's bound to get some attention. And so that's the trade-off. The other thing that you may have to offer is if you have a large social media following. So maybe you are not necessarily a really great athlete or a really top level powerlifter, just for example, but you happen to have a huge social media following. There are many companies that would love to associate themselves with you because of that following, because everything that you say and do hits so many eyes and ears. It's all about propagating that message and getting their product in front of more eyes and ears, more consumers. So you have to consider, what do you have to offer? And if you're just kind of beginning in the powerlifting, or you're beginning in whatever sport, and you don't have a huge social media following, you may not necessarily have that much to offer companies. So don't be surprised if people aren't necessarily interested in picking you up as an athlete. You might just have to do it just for the love of it. And there comes a lot of negative attention with folks who try too hard to pursue those sponsorships. I've done some work locally to pick up some local sponsors and things like that. And like I said, some of those relationships have been very fruitful and very beneficial, and some of them have not. And that's just kind of how relationships go. Some things work out, some things don't. In some instances, like I said, I've been able to approach local companies, local people. One of the very successful ones that I've been involved with was Progressive Chiropractic and Rehabilitation with Dr. Joel Tate. That relationship has been very fruitful, has been very beneficial, I think, for both he and I. And it's something I'm very, very grateful to have engaged in. Deeply grateful. Other relationships, not so much. But that's just kind of how life works. Some things work out really, really well, and some things don't. So there also may be some sense of trial and error in terms of, finding a good fit. You'll find some athletes that fit in with a company or get in with a company, and it's a great fit, and both parties, benefit immensely from the relationship. And, I think ideally that's what everyone's looking for. I guess one of the last topics, or the last thing that I'll touch on in terms of sponsorships, is looking at local versus, say, national sponsorships. So the local stuff is a little bit more along the lines of what I've been discussing in terms of my own experience. most of, in fact, all of my sponsorships have been local, and I've got a direct relationship with those parties, and we were able to negotiate kind of the terms of that sponsorship, and away we went. There are bigger kind of national level companies that sponsor athletes and things like that, and I think maybe some of those relationships are much more fruitful for the athlete, but they're also much more difficult to get. So in terms of like those national level sponsorships, in order to secure something like that, you really need to be a top of the line athlete or top of the line competitor in whatever your field is, and almost always also have a very large social media following, because that makes you a much more attractive, much more mutually beneficial partnership for those national level companies to seek out. So in something like that, for those big national level sponsorships, almost always those companies are going to seek you out, not the other way around. So that's more or less pretty much it, my little tips and kind of conversation about sponsorship. If you guys are athletes out there and you're doing whatever your sport is, whether it's powerlifting or something else, I wouldn't necessarily concern yourself so much with trying to become a sponsored athlete. And if you are, I would say the best bet is to work with some local companies, somebody something local, somebody maybe that What I've seen in terms of sponsorships is most of those things come out of personal relationships. So even some of the big national level sponsors, the people that they're picking up, those individuals tend to be personal friends of the people who run those businesses. You look at some of the stuff with like Mark Bell, you look at some of the stuff with, even Hate Brand with Matt Vincent. You look at, some of the other companies, supplements and things like that. Some of that stuff that's out there, you see some of those athletes that are involved in those sponsorships. A lot of times those athletes have very close personal ties to the people who are running those businesses. And so I guess that's another thing to maybe consider, is that personal relationships are paramount. If you have the opportunity to meet and greet with some of these business owners and be in the same place, the same space, and get to know these individuals, probably not going to hurt you in terms of being able to generate more interest in yourself. That's not to say that you should pursue people and try to chase people, kind of an ambulance chaser, so to speak, just to gain some notoriety for yourself. But as with almost anything else in life, personal relationships are king. If you have a personal relationship with somebody, it's going to get you a lot farther than anything else. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. So just consider that. And then, like I said, if you're kind of an incoming athlete, you're a new young lifter, don't preoccupy yourself with sponsorships. Don't try to pursue too many people, because reputations precede you. And if you make yourself out to be someone who's just out there just grinding and trying to dig up sponsorships and press people for money and things like that, you're going to build a reputation for yourself, and people are going to know that well in advance, and are likely to be dissuaded from working with you because of that relationship. So bear that in mind as well. A lot of those types of things kind of come and develop on their own. But my advice is if you have the opportunity to be at the same place at the same time with some big companies, or some of those power brokers within the industry, there's no reason why you shouldn't. Go there, be yourself, represent you as you are, and maybe you'll strike a chord with somebody, and based on just similar personality or similar interest, those business owners will take a shine to you, and vice versa. Be yourself, be who you are, be true to kind of your belief system, and I'm sure things will wind up as they're supposed to wind up. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I have to say about sponsorship. I wrote down a couple of notes to kind of keep myself on track. I hope that I've touched on this topic sufficiently. If you feel like there's something that I've left off, by all means, leave me a question, comment below. I would love to respond to you and give you my thoughts or experience on some of the sponsorships that I've enjoyed, and some of which I haven't. And then, if I can give you guys any tips or any other advice, I'd be more than happy to do so. So, like I said, any comments, questions, leave them below. And as soon as they come through, or as soon as I see them, I promise I'll respond. But that's it, guys. That's the video. I hope you liked it. I hope it was informative and gave you some idea of sponsorships and this, some idea about how they work. Yeah. Thanks for checking out the video. I appreciate you guys, as always. I appreciate all the subscribes and stuff that have come along, and I appreciate you guys being patient with my sort of lax distribution for videos, I guess, or releasing of videos recently. I know that I've been kind of hit and miss, mostly just miss, and I'll try to work on that here in the immediate future. But anyway, that's it. Remember, guys, no matter what it is you think you can't do, or whatever it is you believe is holding you back from the things that you want, train despite, chase your dreams, and get after it, guys. Thanks for checking out the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.